It's like summer is the best time, or maybe the most critical time, to contextualize to your community.
Yes.
Because it's going to be different everywhere, and it's going to be different globally. You know, I know you joked about it as we opened, but in Australia, it's winter right now. And I know that they're listening to this, so they're like, what? But it's just that summer is a contextual thing based on where you are. And I think it's important for you to assess that and then flex your ministry to match, to best serve your community.
You know better than anyone else that culture is changing.
Youth ministry is complicated.
And doing it by yourself is really challenging. So
let's rethink it together. Sound like a game day.
Welcome to the Rethinking Youth Ministry Podcast.
That was exactly like I imagined. Welcome back to the Rethinking Youth Ministry Podcast. I'm so excited to talk today about rethinking summer programming for youth group because, hello, it's summertime here in the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is, what the weather's like where you live, but we're talking about what summer is like here where we live. My name's Ashley.
I'm Shane.
I'm Leslie.
Senior adult.
Oh my gosh.
Jeremey.
His name's Stuart.
Stuart.
We've been having conversations with so many youth workers who have so many different models of what ministry looks like in summertime. Let's actually throw some of those out there because for some people, they only know the context they're in. And so I want to just throw out there, like I was just having a conversation with the church. They don't have small group that meet in the summer. And so they just have their large group programming. And so they were trying to figure out how to contextualize the curriculum that they're using to work for their environment. So that's one model.
And there's a counter to that, and that is the youth leader who's in a context where there's an expectation that they program something maybe more than once a week.
Yep.
Just because students are out of school and there's an expectation that they provide some sort of extracurricular activity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's also the model where you meet once in a large group gathering once a month, but then for the other 3 weeks, you do something different, whether that's at a small group level or independently in like clusters in your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's the mindset. It's different than a model. I think that there's the mindset that we're just going to own what summer is. Like people leave town, attendance. If that's, I know we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, but if that is still something we're paying really close attention to, we're going to concede the fact that it's going to be low, and that might change the approach that we do have.
To jump onto that mindset, the opposite is true as well. There's a mindset of there are populations of people who can't afford to go out of town on a vacation. And so they have more time than ever before with nothing to do. And so the thing they look forward to most is their weekly gatherings.
And there is a mindset of those people who are traveling. The church gets extremely frustrated with absence.
Yep.
And the summer becomes a time where you feel this need to, this is an extreme, but you lambaste people for not being there.
There's also communities that feel the way, and maybe we already kind of mentioned this, but if school was the only place they were getting 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day, then the church is trying to fill in that gap for the community. Like, how can we still feed these kids? You know?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It sounds like summer is the best time, or maybe the most critical time, to contextualize to your community.
Yes.
Because it's going to be different everywhere, and it's going to be different globally. You know, I know you joked about it as we opened, but in Australia, it's winter right now. And I know that they're listening to this, so they're like, what? But it's just that summer is a contextual thing based on where you are. And I think it's important for you to assess that and then flex your ministry to match, to best serve your community.
And to Leslie's point, to keep the family structure in mind, because there isn't a built-in 2 meals a day. That means the grocery bill has gone up. It means the AC bill has gone up. It means gas bills have gone up for the family. And then if you are privileged enough to play on a travel team or doing that kind of thing, there's an expense in that. And the question that the youth ministry and greater faith community has to ask is, do we want church to be an added expense? Are we considering that we are an added expense with all the things that maybe we're programming?
That's so good.
Programming them to do.
One of the churches that I recently spoke with, the youth pastor said he has a higher group of students that show up during the summertime because instead of doing their regular programming, they are doing mission, like mission work in the community, which I guess he said they don't do during the school year as much, but they've got more students that come during the summer for their program because they want to go and serve.
Yeah,
Wow.
I love that.
Thanks for clarifying more, because when you said a higher group of students, I thought summer could be anything. Anyways, let's keep going.
I would say also in the mindset, I was just thinking about what we were talking about. Like, it's sometimes the decision isn't even just about if the students are going to be there or not. It's about the leaders. And so a lot of people make decisions about their summer programming because they want to give their leaders either a break, which is why they don't have groups, because they actually want to retain their leaders, their volunteers. So they plan that break in. I also know another church who recruits a totally different crop of leaders for just the summer. And it's a 3-month stint. And so they have their 9-month leaders and their 3-month leaders. And these like relationships is kind of like a test drive in a way, but it gives their leaders a break. And by the way, none of us are saying any of these are right or wrong. They're just realities of ministries and how complex and layered it can be to talk about programming. But I think the beautiful thing is anytime I'm talking to a leader who's doing something I've never heard of or I've never led through, in that type of model, I learned something so significant from. So that's what I want to talk about now is like, what are some things you're hearing or learning or feel challenged by or are rethinking when it comes to summer programming?
One of the things I'm thinking through is how to help build in better rhythms of rest. We as a church, we overprogram so much. And so where are we giving opportunities for our students to actually practice resting? And what could that look like in our youth ministry? Maybe our summer program. And I get the tension from the leadership side. But what could it look like if we just offered for our students to come and simply rest?
That's good.
Mandatory nap time would be amazing.
I would have hated that as a teenager. I'm like, I don't want to sleep and I don't want to watch TV.
Just to have different conversations about how rest can look and be experienced differently.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah.
Summer's a great time to experiment in specific ways. I think like, I know in the rhythms that I was used to in the communities where I was a youth pastor, it wouldn't have been the best time for like a big event outside of summer camp, but it was a great time to like do some slower paced stuff. Jeremy, like you're referring to some Bible study stuff, like just like hang out and just create space that doesn't feel super forced. It's like show up and like we've got some space or we're going somewhere because sometimes there's daytime availability that isn't there during the school year or whatever else. So it's just a great time to experiment with things that you've been thinking about or ideating for some time now.
Yeah, this feels like a good callback even to the other episode where we talk about planning. I think that whole idea of like you have to plan how you're going to enter the summer, what you're going to do for the summer, and how you're going to come back from the summer. Because if you don't plan it and leave it up to whatever happens, it's like you miss strategic opportunities. I think so.
And you're way too exhausted after the summer to make a good plan for launch.
No, that's real.
That's so good. We'll link to that episode in the show notes.
Yeah. One thing to consider too, in the calendar year, it's halfway. So
I don't know why I had to think about that so hard.
I did too. I was like,
you're at the halfway mark of your calendar year.
Yeah.
It's a good place for you to take a step back and evaluate.
That's true.
There are some things that you're doing are really working.
Yeah.
Press the gas. There's some things
That's
you're
true.
doing that maybe isn't working. It's not going over well.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to think about how do we maybe fade this out of what we're doing programmatically. And then there are some things to Shane's point. Where do we experiment? It's a beautiful place for you to maybe think. Leslie was talking about this, doing things programmatically that you haven't done before.
I love that. And I would imagine, Stuart, that people listening are like, I would love to be able to do that. I don't even have enough time to work on my ministry because I'm so in it in the summer, which is so realistic. And I remember feeling that in my first ministry job because there was no break and it was like full gas. And I'm trying to figure out budget and planning and wrap a school year, launch the summer, get ready for the fall, like all the things, transition grades, like all of the things. And I remember going to my leadership and I was scared to ask for this because it made me feel like, I guess this is my Enneagram theory, but I'm like, do I sound lazy asking for this? But I remember saying, I want to implement a 2-week full stop of all youth ministry right before the school year launches. And we pitched it as these are the 2 weeks before the next school year launches. Parents, make the most of it. Here are so many ideas of things you could do as a family to gear up for the school year. But what it did is it built in time for rest, like Jeremey was talking about, for the staff, like a vacation where you didn't have to make sub plans, you know, and it gave you time to work on the ministry. So we would do 1 week of rest, vacation, whatever, and 1 week of what do we need to work on because we're not in it at the moment. So let's work on it. And I mean, it took some convincing, but it was one of the best things we instated was the 2 week full stop right before school started. It happened to be in Maryland at the time. It was the first 2 weeks of August, but I know everybody's school year starts at a different time. But if you've never pursued that kind of a conversation or something like that, I encourage you to do that because we had a lot of success with it.
That's so good.
That's really, really good. I actually think that brings up a great point. Now I'm rethinking everything. No, but I think you don't necessarily have to do something different in the summer. I think maybe that's an important note, especially if you're going to camp. Like if camp is a part of your summer routine, which it is for, not all, but some, that's a really heavy lift. If you have some type of big event like that, and it doesn't mean that you need to come back and do a million different things. Maybe you need to find the space to work on the ministry in summer like you can't outside of it. Like there's just something about that takes up, I felt that as a youth pastor. Like we would go to camp and I'm like, that is such a heavy lift. But then I had these 8 other plates that were spinning. And as soon as we got back, we needed to run into. And I'm like, what if we didn't do that? Even though people think like camp is a vacation sometimes. Other people are like, I don't know if y'all ever got that, but like, how was your week at the beach? I'm like, I was crushing vapes at 1 a.m, and like pulling turds out of Pringles cans. That's a real thing that happened. I didn't pull the turd out of it. It's
We're gonna let him get away with
it. They're very specific though, and they are real things that happen. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot that goes in there. Don't crush yourself under the weight of experimenting, even if it winds up being a good time.
Can I slide something else across the table? I think it was G.K. Chesterton that said that the true meaning of life is play. I think we lose sight of the fact that the next generation for 8 months of the year, 7 months of the year, have their whole life dictated for them. Perhaps we should consider just having some fun during the summer.
That's
and
great.
not over-program it.
Yeah.
To let kids breathe. You agree with that, Leslie?
I agree. I also think that maybe this is an opportunity for innovation where maybe in the winter, what if we got our most bought in upperclassmen, if you happen to have upperclassmen, to plan the summer and then they propose to you what they want to do and what they want to program for the summer, like throughout the early winter. And then you equip them and resource them to execute. And I think a way you help, basically alleviate some of the pressure and you help them step into leadership. And like, there's just so many ways it could be beneficial and if they say like, okay, on, first week we do something restful because we want to do a restful rhythm. On second week we do something, service, whatever. I think that gives them some framework and lets them, have a good time programming.
That's good.
I love that you talked about student leadership and that because one of the things I was talking to with the church who doesn't have their normal small groups and their volunteers in the summer, I was telling them about something that we created at Orange called the Faith Skills Experience Kits. And we write those keeping in mind that a student might be leading it with other students. So maybe it's a good time, like, that's a shame. I don't mean to have a shameless plug there, but like, I'm proud of those and their devotional experiences. Like we know what devotionals are, right? Devotional experience is something that you do to apply and do it with other people. And you like, wrestle out and talk out, work out their faith. And I feel like it's just a different tempo of a small group version. And so like, it might be a cool time to try those.
So one of the things that I loved as a youth pastor and my students loved doing during the summer, we put a pause on our regular program and we did summer intramural games.
That's
and
so
we
great.
had
That's
students
fun.
who were team captains and they led the devotionals during halftime. We used the Faith Skills Experience kits as well as the Devos that go with the series. And it was always fun because we put in a variety of different games, not just sports activities, but a number of games that were able to connect with different students, the diversity of our group, but it was all student led. And so they had their teams, they contacted their team on a regular basis throughout the summer. And our students just ran with it. And it was just a lot of fun. Yeah. And the fact that I didn't really have to do anything.
Yeah. You just went out there and were crushing middle schoolers in dodgeball, right?
I was the ref.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
You were the most hated.
What I love about that, and it speaks to what you were saying earlier, Stuart, is that wasn't forced fun. Yeah. And sometimes that's what we do. And forced fun is no fun at all.
Yeah.
So when you're over programming fun, it's like, come, it's going to be so much fun. And it's like this rigid thing that matches the rest of their year that can get a little wonky from time to time. So I love that it was just like, hey, let's give this to the students, let them come up and like just hang out and play games. Yeah. Like that's awesome.
You're such a good leader, Jeremy.
I know.
You are.
Seriously.
It's most like Jesus.
It's kind of nauseating, Jeremy.
Yeah,
but I was just thinking about in our effort to make fun the priority, which I love, let's also as youth leaders not forget to include like the students with special needs and value accessibility. So like if you're going to a pool party, making sure it's accessible to all your students. If you have this wild plan for intramurals or whatever you mentioned, like it, considering like how can I adapt this so all of my students can participate? Because every single one of us who's in youth ministry wants people to feel like they belong and like they're included in it. And so that's such an easy way to consider every student. And like even like if you look into neurodiversity and making sure that's a value in your plan. And if you don't know that much about it, tap the special needs teachers in the school system. Like they're going to give you, or counselors or whatever, they're going to give you amazing tools to adapt it or even help you do that. Like they're experts at it. Lean into them. Maybe they're looking for a way to serve the community in other, areas of the kid's life.
I think another thing is, and I wish I would have thought about this with our intramural games, is there's an opportunity to bring and partner with parents in having fun with their kids as well. I wish I would have thought you saying all of that. I wish I would have thought about bringing the parents in to play against the students one time.
Oh my gosh, I would have loved to like race my dad in something in front of my friends.
I would like to see you race your dad now.
Stuart, I know you and I were talking as we were leading up to this, and you were posing some questions for leaders
I have
to
10
think
questions.
through. And I think they're so brilliant. I'm like, I just want us all to sit at the feet of the GOAT.
Leslie. No, you're the
goat. Okay, if you can't see Leslie, she literally just sat on the ground at the feet of Stuart Hall. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I said Leslie is a goat because before we started, she was in the middle. We said she was the goat.
Yeah, she has her own camera.
And now you're knocking down my microphone.
Oh no.
Your microphone.
Please give us
and
the 10
if Stuart sits, he won't be able to.
That's right. Bad knees. Question number 1. You made this point earlier, Leslie. Can we shift to master teacher to roundtable discussions during the summer?
It's great. Love it.
So a lot of times we do our normal programming, but can you shift it? And what this does, I think, is it allows small group leaders to have some time off.
Yeah, that's great.
So you have a table leader and you can rotate that. So maybe they can take a couple of Sundays off during the summer. Question number 2. Can we move our programming to homes in different areas of our community?
That's great.
So you have students who live different parts of town. Yep. Maybe you identify homes that are in those parts of town, and instead of them coming to the church, be awesome if they have a pool.
Oh yeah.
I love
or if
that.
there's an area pool, a city pool.
Yeah.
And if you do that as a youth ministry, we want to hear, like, drop in the comments, like, the benefits that's brought and like how it's changed the energy in the ministry.
Number 3, can we enable small group leaders to do something fun with their small group?
Yes.
So think about this.
Great.
Instead of you planning a bowling trip, what if you gave small group leaders money to go take their students bowling?
That's so good.
And a list of ideas and how much it costs
That's so
in the
good.
community. Like, do the work for them. They're more likely to do it
so
then.
good.
Question number 4, and this may be my favorite. Can we use this? There's like when I say summer, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Hot.
Sunshine.
Yeah, I
about
think
you, Ashley?
it's probably sunshine.
Heat. Yes.
See, we want to be outside.
I hate it.
What's the first thing that comes to your
Yeah, what do you think
I
of?
think 2 things. I think beach.
Oh,
I think blockbuster movies.
okay.
Because the summer always.
Oh, you meant like the chain. I was like, hey man, I hate to break this to you. Those have been closed for a while.
But think about it. In the film industry, there's always
great
huge, massive movies that come out in the summer. Here's the question. Can we use a summer blockbuster movie as a fun experience with a point? Can we team up with other faith communities, other faith community youth ministries in our area to provide an inspirational and fun back to school experience?
Yes.
It's good.
To create momentum in our city. I think that's a great idea for you to partner going back to school.
Also, like other outside organizations.
Yeah.
Say more.
So we did a partnership with Young Life to do their back to school bash, and it was the best thing.
Oh, I
so
love
good.
that. That's
Our producer
great.
Kim is over there giving us a snap. She loved that one.
Or the local like snow cone place for real. Like find something like that and sponsor a night or do something fun like that.
Are you reading ahead here? Can we champion teenagers who are playing in tournaments and games in town?
Oh yeah.
What about free snow cones?
No way.
I'm not
Look at
lying.
God.
Free snow cones at the soccer or basketball or baseball or the 7-on-7 tournament that your church provides. And there are hundreds of teenagers in those environments.
That's so good.
So it's a great way for you to connect and to, serve people.
Wait, let me jump on that, because there's also like that place in your community that a lot of your teenagers work at. What if everybody just showed up at their work one day and had a huge party, like at their snow cone
Bum
stand?
Rush Brewsters.
So fun.
Brewsters.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Can we relieve pressure for parents as it relates to work and students being home?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that gets lost here is mom and dad still have to work.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're leaving teenagers to their own device. And so how do we relieve some of that pressure? Can we partner with community and schools to provide help during their summer camps? Because for those of you that don't know, almost every public school in America provides some sort of camp experience. How can you help? That would be a great thing to think about. Can we make a summer camp experience more affordable and more accessible to all teenagers during the summer? One of the things we're going to have to, and this is probably a whole nother podcast, but summer camp has become so expensive
Oh my gosh.
that maybe you have, instead of going away, you stay, but you do it creatively, just so more kids can be involved. And the last one is, how can we serve in our community in some way, shape, or form? What Jeremy was talking about. Those are your 10 questions.
I want to know how you came up with these. Like, they're brilliant. I love it. It's such a gut check for any ministry leader. Like, have I thought through this? Have I talked through this? Have I asked parents of, like, what work have I done? And I want to know how you came up with those.
What prompt did you put into ChatGPT?
No, I did not. I don't even know how to use that. There is an advantage to being old. And this is a lot of years of just making a ton of mistakes and thinking through too. It's interesting being a youth leader and then being a parent, being a youth leader and being a volunteer high school basketball coach.
Wow.
Being a parent who's also in ministry and wants to use the summer for my own family. All those things present some interesting tension.
That's so good. Yeah. Well, we sure hope that you have the absolute best summer you've ever had in your life. Yeah. We're here. We're cheering you on. We'd love to hear what you're rethinking or what you're celebrating when it comes to summer programming. Reach out, DM us. We'll talk to you soon.